Shannon, unmute yourself.
A very good afternoon and a hearty welcome to everyone present in the meeting. Christo Jayanti College is an autonomous institution affiliated to Bangalore North University and accredited with grade A++. Our college is the second best college in India with a GPA of 3.78 out of 4. The college offers 51 courses both in UG and in PG. The Department of Social Sciences offers interdisciplinary courses in the domains of history, economics, Hindi, Kannada, and sociology. I am extremely privileged to invite you to the valedictory function of the Department of Social Sciences and Languages and the release of the 3 magazines, Scrolls, Unlocking Minds, and The Defecto. Prayer is the great virtue of aligning ourselves with the purpose of God. It is a mark of our great tradition to invoke the blessings of Almighty before any event. I now call upon the college choir for the invocation.
Throughout the ages, and now speak to me. You're my creator King. You who made the valleys and the skies, displayed your love on far horizons and before
unmute yourself.
Thank you, choir. Now I welcome Dr. Shika Das, Faculty, Department of Sociology, to formally welcome the gathering.
Thank you, Sharon. I take this opportunity to welcome and introduce Professor Rekha Pandey, who is also my teacher from University of Hyderabad. Professor Rekha Pandey, the former head Center for Women's Studies and former head Department of History, University of Hyderabad. Ma'am is currently associated as Director of Seed Society for Empowerment through Environment Development. Ma'am was also a visiting fellow Brickback Institute of Humanities. Ma'am was also the Peace Ambassador for the South Asian region. So next, I would like to welcome respected Dr. Gopakumar sir, Dean, Department of Humanities. I would like to welcome Dr. Michael sir, Coordinator, Department of Social Science and Languages. I would like to welcome Professor B. Ramya ma'am, Head, Department of History. Finally, I would like to welcome my friends and senior Dr. Kaveri Swami, Dr. Muhammad Sirajuddin sir, Dr. Ravi Shankar sir, and we'd like to and the students who have joined here today. And finally, we have our one major alumni, Lieutenant John George Thumpy, who was the first editor of the history magazine Scrolls, is also with us. Thank you, everyone. I welcome you all to the further ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Your contribution towards the department have been excellent. We heartily welcome you too. Competition makes us faster and collaboration makes us better. This is exactly what the Department of Social Sciences and Languages always had its eyes set on. By constantly organizing lectures and curating workshops, the Social Sciences and Languages Department has immensely helped students to strive more and take another leap. Now, we have the student coordinators from various departments to give us a brief presentation on the department and the club activities of the academic year 2021 and 2022. First, we have Ms. Anita, student coordinator of history.
A very good afternoon to everyone present in the meeting. Department and Club Activity Reports 2021-22. It is with great pleasure that I would like to present to you the annual Department and Club Activity Reports of the Department of History for the year 2021-22. The Department of History has been extensively instrumental in organizing various lectures, in venturing numerous collaborations, in devising competitions, and making sure agile participation from the wards. Getting on to the monthly reports. In the month of August, the department flagged off the activities with an unprecedented gesture of partnering with an institution. The National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, and Christi Jayanti College signed a memorandum of understanding through an online Zoom MOU signing ceremony. The very same day, in collaboration with NIAS, a panel discussion on women and science disciplines and nurturing the gifted children was also hosted through a virtual platform. In the same month, a webinar on the role of manuscripts in learning history was organized with Professor Sridhar PD as the resource person. August was an even more happening month with the 75th Independence Day celebrations, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. A declamation competition for students and a short film screening was also done. In the month of September, the department organized a webinar on US and the World Order, Options and Challenges in the 2020s, in association with International Peace Research Initiative at NIAS. Professor Sumit Ganguly, Indiana University, Bloomington headed the session. In the same month, a two-day webinar on ethnohistory and ethnoarchaeology was conducted with Professor C.A. Maulong as the resource person. The month of October was eventful with a cultural exhibition that showcased the true potential of students like never before. In association with Library Information Center, a cultural expo titled Own Your Heritage was hosted in the campus with students displaying enormous and professional displays that resonated with the glory of a rich culture. Over 95 students participated from the departments of history and sociology. In association with Gandhi Jayanti, an online competition, Do It Your Way, was hosted with the theme being Gandhi and Sustainable Development Goals. Digital arts, essay writings, and sketchings was conducted. Around 30 students participated. In the month of November, A webinar on India and the Glasgow Climate Change Summit was organized in collaboration with NIAS. Dr. Tejal Kantika, who was a member in Indian delegation at COP26 Summit at Glasgow, addressed the students. In the same month, a two-day national workshop for young scholars on global protest movements was organized by the department in collaboration with NIAS. Around 15 young scholars presented their papers on the same. In the month of January, a webinar on India and contemporary world order was organized with Professor Ambi P.S. Raghavan, who was the chairman of NSAB, as the resource person. It looked into different strategic partnerships and India's role in it. In the same month, an international lecture session on European Union, China, and the world order, partners, competitors, and systemic rivals was held online with Mr. Peter Rimmel, President Representative to India at Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, as the resource person. In the months of February and March 2022, in association with Europe Studies, Science and Technology International Program, NIAS, a webinar titled War Clouds Over Ukraine was hosted with Professor Ambi P.S. Raghavan as the resource person. As a continuation to this, a panel discussion on the topic, War in Ukraine, was organized in the month of March. Many young scholars presented their papers on the same. In the month of April 2022, in association with NIAS, an international lecture on Europe at Crossroads was hosted in the campus. His Excellency, Mr. George Hejico, Consul General, Kingdom of Netherlands, led to the session. In the same month, a lecture on numismatics and vernacular scripts was also organized. This sums up the year-round activity of the Department of History. I express my heartfelt gratitude to everybody who has been instrumental in making this a fruitful year. Thank you so much. I remain.
Thank you, Anita. Now we have Mr. Sanjay, Student Coordinator of Political Science.
Hello, Shannon. Am I audible?
Yes, Sanjay.
Yeah. So good evening, all. I am Sanjay Jayakumar, one of the co-coordinators of the Political Science Club. The Political Science e-newsletter, named De Facto, meaning by the fact, is in its third issue. We, the Political Science Club, are extremely happy to present it to you all today. The Department of Political Science has come up with and successfully completed many events for the academic year 2021-22. The events were Quizarts 2021, which was held on 25th October 2021. The event saw participation from 7 teams consisting of 2 members each. 5 teams were selected to the final, which consisted of 4 rounds in total. The next is Unity for Social Change. It is a guest lecture on the topic Unity for Social Change, which was organized by the department on 27th October 2021 on account of Ekta Divas, which is celebrated on 31st October. The event was conducted as a part of the week-long celebrations of Ekta Divas by the department. Dr. Purnima P.S., Assistant Professor, Department of Social Work, Christo Jayanti College, was the resource person. The next event is Boeing 737, Who Survives? It was an intra-collegiate air crash event conducted as a part of Humantra 2021. It was held on 24th November 2021. The judges of the event were Professor Minu, Department of English, Professor Masilamani, also from the Department of English, and Professor Ramya B., Head of the Department of History. The next event was a guest lecture on constitutional principles. The guest lecture was held on 26 November 2021 on account of Constitution Day celebrations by the department. Dr. Mohan R. Bola, Principal, Christo Jayanti College of Law, was the resource person. The next event was Patriot. The next event was Ballot, conducted on 25th January 2022. It was an online poster making competition held on 25th January 2022. It was conducted to commemorate the National Voters' Day. The next event is Patriot. It was an online quiz. It was held to commemorate the 73rd Republic Day 2022. The next event is Grama Samvad. It was conducted on 11th March 2022. It was a field visit to Byatha Sirsandra village for second year HEP and EPS students. The next event was the Gandhi Fellowship Program, which was conducted on 6th April 2022. The resource persons were Aditi Sugara, Program Leader, Marketing and Communications, Gandhi Fellowship Program, and R. Manohar, Program Leader, Marketing and Communications for Gandhi Fellowship Program. The next event was Lux Poetica, conducted on 13th May 2022. This was a book release event. So 2 books were released on that day. The first one was Anthology of Political Poems by Gauri Srikumar. And the second book was The Ardent Zephyr by Anita Anna Shaji. So this sums up the events of political science for the academic year 2021 and 22. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Now we have Mr. Chendur, Student Coordinator of Sociology.
Hello. Please continue. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes,
You are audible. Please continue. As a coordinator, Department of Sociology, I would like to represent all the events that took place this year. The first and foremost event that took place this year was the Gandhi Fellowship orientation that took place in our college. It was a Gandhi Fellowship which gave us an insight about a fellowship program in which our students learn about soft skills. Our next program that we had was the NSS visit. This visit was to a school, a low class school, which was for the poorest kids. It was a government school. The students of our college went there and gave us teaching lessons. They stayed for a couple of hours. They gave some classes and some thoughtful insights to the children. The next event we had in our sociology was the Mysore trip that took place in the month of May. We went to Mysore. We visited the Mysore Palace as well as the church. Thank you.
Thank you, Chendur. I once again would like to thank Anita, Sanjay, and Chendur. You have not just been leaders, but the most efficient in inspiring all to participate and win laurels for the institution. Now, it's time for the big reveal, the much awaited release of the 4th volume of History magazine, Scrolls 2022, the political science newsletter, De facto 2022, and the Sociology magazine, Unlocking Minds 2022. I request the Honorable Chief Guest of the Day, Professor Rekha Pandey, to preside the release of the 3 magazines.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm there. How do we release it on time?
Scrolls talks about the gloriousness of our culture and tradition. It also shows us how festivals have played an important role in our lives. This masterpiece, Scrolls, has been crafted under the guidance of Professor Ramya B. and Dr. Ravi Shankar, and the student coordinators and the chief editors also, Anita and Bryden. Not forgetting the editorial team and the tech team who has done a brilliant job in making this come to life. The magazine, which is you can see on your screen, is the official magazine, which has been released today, with all the articles and the letters and the poems and whatever which was sent by the students have been presented here from various combinations and various students of different batches, first years, second years, and third years.
Appreciation to all the people who have contributed for the Scroll magazine, and special thanks to the student editorial board and faculty editorial board. We don't want to miss out from showing any author's name, so that's why we are slowly showing all the pages. It just takes 2 minutes of time, but it looks lengthier. That's all. Thank you.
Next, we have the De facto, which is a newsletter which was released by the Political Science Department. The newsletter De facto has been brilliantly crafted under the guidance of Dr. S.J. Michael, Dr. Kaveri Swami, and Dr. Mohammad Sirajuddin, and the student coordinators were also the chief editors of the magazine, Sanjay and Dorcas. Basically, this newsletter talks about and contains all the webinars, the programs, activities, and articles which were conducted by the Political Science Department. They have been given by and contributed towards through various students from various batches, first years, second years, and third years. Everyone has done a brilliant job in making this a success. The magazine you see on screen is the De facto newsletter, where everyone's articles, poems, and the newsletters which were sent by various students have been on the screen. It has been beautifully designed by the tech team, who have done an excellent job in making it as creative as possible. Next, we have from the Sociology Department, Unlocking Minds 2022. Unlocking Mind basically talks about the difference of perspective and different social structure. This has been beautifully done under the guidance of Professor Shika Das and the student coordinators, and also the chief editors, Sri Lakshmi and Ria. Here is the magazine you can see on the screen, which involves a lot of different film reviews, interviews, etc. Thank you. I would like to thank you, ma'am, for releasing all the three magazines. It was an honor. I would also not forget the editorial teams of the respective magazines and newsletters who have put such an immense energy and work into making this, and also the contribution of all the students who have participated with so much zeal and enthusiasm. I'm sure that Scrolls 2022, De facto 2022, and Unlocking Minds 2022 will undoubtedly leave you with a thought-provoking experience. With greatest honor, I take this opportunity to thank the teachers and the team. Congratulations. I would now, on behalf of the Christo Jayanti College, once again welcome the Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Rekha Pandey. She's currently a Professor Emeritus at the Henry Martin Institute, an international center for research, interfaith relations and reconciliation, Hyderabad, and Martin Luther Christian University, Shillong. Former head of the Department of History and Center for Women's Studies at the University of Hyderabad. She's also the director of SEED, that is the Society for Empowerment Through Environment Development. She was the chair of the Women's World Congress in 2014, organized for the first time in India. She has to her credit 20 books and more than 150 articles in national and international journals, book chapters, and proceedings. She has been the editor of International Feminist Journals of Politics, Routledge Taylor, and Francis Group, UK. She has also edited Foreign Policy Analysis, which is published by Blackwell, USA. She was also nominated as the Peace Ambassador for the South Asia region by the International Women's Peace Group, Korea, for the year 2016-2018. She has been the project director of 42 projects. She has guided 23 PhD and 45 MPhil students in both history and gender studies. She has been an assessor for NEC and involved in the accreditation and the evaluation of large number of colleges and universities in India. She has widely traveled in India and abroad to deliver keynote addresses and lectures and present papers in national and international conferences. She has been recently invited by the National Commission for Women, Government of India, to be its resource person for gender sensitization and gender development program in India. I request ma'am to address the students on the topic Indian cultures, its diversities and continuities. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Dr. Ramya, Michael, my old students, Ravi and Shikha Das, and Shaman. It's indeed a great pleasure to be present here and, release your three magazines, Scrolls, De facto, and Unlocking Minds. As a NAC assessor for the last so many years, I've traveled to so many different colleges and universities, and I think you are doing a wonderful work. The very fact that, our education system is now recovering from the pandemic. We really had a very bad phase. And when you were telling me the, programs which you were having month by month, I think really the credit goes to you all, your teachers and the students. I was very happy when, I looked at the history magazine. I have not looked at detail the other magazines. And there were a lot of articles on culture. I just could glance through some. Maybe now I will sit and read them at leisure. And it was really interesting. I think for a student to see your name in print is something which is, a very happy occasion. And I'm glad that you are giving this opportunity to your students. My only suggestion would be that in future, you should try to, get an ISSN number so that, you also benefit out of it. And if you, teach your students from now, because many of them would go into research and all, how to write references, how to look into, when you're quoting so that there is no plagiarism. And it will really become a very good magazine or a journal. I think the next step, I've already seen that you've got a very good grade from NAC, and I'm sure your aims are definitely to become a university, and there is a lot of scope for getting autonomous universities in the future. And if you move in this direction and take your students along, I'm sure you'll do wonderful work. Now, with those words, is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. It is clearly visible. Yes.
So, since most of the articles were on culture, I thought, let me talk a little about Indian culture and its diversities. Now, what is it that we mean by culture? It is referred, when we talk of culture, it's a knowledge which a group of people have. It can encompass language, cuisine, social aspects, music, art, architecture, philosophy, and religion. So in short, culture is the whole cumulative deposit of knowledge and experiences of a particular society. But one thing we should remember is culture is something which is never fixed. It is always fluid and it is constantly in motion. Now, when I look back at Indian culture, it took us 5,000 years to develop this culture. And to speak about it in half an hour, it's an impossible task, but let me see, I'll try my best. First time, it was a Swiss historian, Carl Jacob Christopher Buckford. He was a Swiss historian who founded cultural history as a discipline. And he is the one who is primarily responsible for looking at cultural history. One aspect which we must remember, and one concept which is very important for us to understand, is cultural ethnocentrism. See, cultural ethnocentrism is where we are sitting at a point and we judge another's culture. Since you are born and brought up in your own culture, you always think that is the superior culture, and you always look down upon the other's culture. And this may be because of a sense of pride, vanity, superiority of a particular group. And therefore, if we are able to avoid this cultural ethnocentrism, we will have no problems in our society, such as wars, oppression, slavery, because all this happens. The reason why we had so many years of colonialism is because the British thought that, it is the white man's burden. They have the best culture and they were here to train us. We were all barbarians they were trying to train in a way. Now, when we talk of Indian culture, it is made up of two different aspects. One is a Indian mind, and the second is a social mind. When we talk of an Indian mind, it is our common outlook, our temperament. We may think that we are very different, but this is something, especially when you interact with outsiders, then you feel that, yes, this Indian mind is something which is very important. And the social mind is the kind of influences we've had in the past, and which have been incorporated and became a part of our own culture. And so these two things are something which are very important. Now, when we talk of India, there is so much of diversity in India. All of us know, whether we look at it in terms of our physical environment, or you look at it in terms of our social or cultural environment. We are such a vast country. People speak such different languages, and there is, in fact, after every 5 or 10 miles in India, you come across a totally different kind of culture, whether it is in terms of food habits, dress patterns, music, dance, etc. But in spite of all these differences, there is an underlying factor in our culture, and that is the unity. This unity has, it's been there for so many centuries. The intermingling of people from different racial stock, ethnic background, and religious belief came. Initially, there was always a period of conflict, but over a period of time, there was some kind of an understanding. People settled down, and it gave birth to a very composite and dynamic culture of India. So one aspect which really stands out in our culture is its continuity as well as diversity. It is the continuity which is much more important, because our culture has been ravaged with time, and yet we have been able to preserve our heritage in spite of all the military invasions, the political empires that came up. And our literature, art, architecture, the rich historical legacy that we have is a continuation of this and a proof of this. And our culture was, transmitted right from generations through a very sound system of education. Our education started in a very oral way. It was an oral tradition, and writing was something which came much later. But there was a lot of notion of accommodation without assimilation. So there has been, in spite of our diversity, in spite of the differences that we have a continuity in our religion. Every group, every society that came into India, they added to this rich tapestry. They were able to, over a period of time, they were able to adapt themselves to these conditions. And there was something, this continuity is something which you can see right from the ancient period to the modern day. Whether you look at it in terms of the pattern of housing, agriculture, marriage rituals, festivals, there is a lot more continuity in our religion. I would, before I move further, I would really like to talk a little about this Pew survey. This is a very interesting survey which is conducted, and it was conducted between 2019 and early 2020. What they did was, more than 30,000 face-to-face interviews were done. They looked into different worlds, Hindus, Jains, Sikhs, etc. And something which really came up as part of this survey is that we are, the central essence of our nation is religious tolerance. There is a lot of religious tolerance. And the reason given is, many people who were Indians, they got converted to different religion. Initially, they were all from, Hindus who got converted. And in spite of that, the Hindu-ness has not left them. If you look at the Indian Muslims today, if you look at the Indian Christians today, they are going to be much different from the Wahhabi Muslims or the Christians abroad. The Muslims continue to have a lot of song, dance in their marriages. The women continue to wear the black beads. And similar with Christians, you can see a lot of Christians going and, breaking coconut in front of the statues of Mary. So, we have developed our own kind of religion. And what was very interesting about this survey is that all of them, they said they were very proud to be Indians. About 95% of Muslims also said that, as Indians, we may not be perfect, but definitely Indian culture is something which is very best. But another very interesting finding of this survey was that we in India are very opposed to interreligious marriage. This is something which we have not accepted. And, Muslims don't like that, that we should marry among Hindus. Hindus don't like that you should marry among Muslims and Christians. So a very interesting finding of the survey was that we are a very tolerant society. We are a very religiously tolerant society, but this does not necessarily involve in mixing religious communities. So, we maintain our distinct identities. And there were, in many countries, you have this melting pot syndrome, that whichever culture comes in, they come in together. Like if you look at the American culture, it is like a melting pot. And what the survey said was, this is something which is very interesting, that we are neither a melting pot nor a salad bowl. The first encourages the immigrants to fuse into the dominant culture. If we would have been a melting pot, everybody would have fused and become a Hindu in that sense. And the second, like a salad bowl, it would be, the immigrants who come, they retain their own characteristic, and yet, when they are interacting with the new society. And what it pointed out, we cannot say that Indian culture is like a melting pot or a salad bowl, but it is more like the Indian thali, where we serve food in different kinds of, you have different dishes which are there, each dish is different, and yet they make a whole. So, the Indian thali is something which could be said about our culture. Now, why is it that we have this kind of a continuity in our culture? We've always had a lot of these intermingling of different ethnic groups. People came from different places and they settled down. They came, some were Proto-Australoids, Negroids, Mongolites. You had the Greeks, Kushans, Shakas, Hunas, Arabs, Turks, Mughal, Europeans, who all came and settled in India. They intermixed with the local population. They brought their own culture, they brought their own habits and ideas. And another very important aspect was Indians traveled a lot from the beginning. In spite of all, when you come to the colonial period, there were a lot of, the Hindu Brahmins were not allowed to cross the seas. Even Gandhi had to go through a lot of rituals, before he could cross the sea. But the fact is, the Indians always traveled a lot, because of pilgrimage, going to other holy places. Sometimes, regions were joined because of conquest and alliances, and military campaigns, connected one region to the other. So in spite of geographical diversity and climatic variations, all of us know in our country, we have mountains, lowland, forests, deltas, deserts, semi-arid tropic. There is a unifying factor. And the most important among them is the monsoons. Now all of us are sitting in this heat with the ACs on, and we are all waiting for the monsoons. And we never realize, in spite of the fact that today we are in the 21st century, the monsoons continue to play a very central role in our whole culture and our psyche. This is the prevalent climate in South and Southeast Asia. In fact, right from the Rig Veda, there is a prayer in the Rig Veda, it connects the monsoons to Pran. Pran is something, it is the life force of fecundity in our culture. And there is a prayer in the Rig Veda which says, may the rains come on time. May the earth bend with the weight of food grains. May this land be free of scourge. May the learned be fearless. May the poor become wealthy, and may all live 100 autumns. May the children have children, and those with children have grandchildren. Lord, give all the people a life of well-being. And it is the monsoon which becomes very central in this. This is one of the most often recited Vedic prayers. It is considered among one of the most powerful 10 prayers. It talks about the power of the monsoon. Its fertilizing power, how it promotes human welfare, the longevity of life, health for a generation of people. There is a very interesting book by Alexander Fretter called Chasing the Monsoon. I would request all of you to please read it. It's an amazing and a very interesting book. And it talks, it really gives you an idea about how monsoons come in a country, how we wait for it. The Bollywood film industry has romanticized the monsoon so much, but today also we have so much floods in Assam. And, when there is seepage, when the roads are blocked because of the water, it creates a lot of havoc. And yet, in spite of this, monsoons become a very defining aspect of our nationhood. It regenerates our whole mountain ranges, grassland, plains, deserts, and it kind of, it is the whole axis around which our agriculture of India revolves. It is, there is also a kind of a great ecological diversity because of the monsoons and the type of climate we have. whether it is our art, literature, or, you know, whether you look at it in terms of our music, dance, they all revolve around the monsoon. And, you know, if you look at some of the very famous, like I said, Bollywood films also, you know, any romantic scene has to be in the monsoons. Now, if we look at it, one of the major reasons in our country is the unity of the political form, right from ancient period. You know, right from ancient period, we used to move from one place to another in search of pasture. People were practicing agriculture, then they settled down. And we had the first political organization that came up. This was through the clans, the Sabha, Samiti, you know, the Vidhata, the Gana, and these were the, you know, first organizations that came up. And slowly from these, you know, you had the 16 Janapadas which came, then you had 4 which emerged. Magadha emerged as a very powerful Rashtra. So right from 6th century to 4th century BC till the Mauryans came, you had these kinds of political formations which came up. When you look at it in the medieval period from 13th to 16th century also, though we had a very powerful state, but it was only limited to northern India. If you look at it in south, we had different dynasties which were there. Definitely the economic organization is much better than the earlier period. There is a growth of town, expansion of trade and commerce. And this is something which we can see in an increase in coinage. There is a lot of transfer of gold and silver into minted money during this period. When the colonial state came, you know, they also contributed. Yes, there were lots of, you know, problems also which we had to face. But definitely, you know, our society was going through a lot of issues, but they outlawed sati in 1829. They made widow remarriage legal. Infanticide was banned. They had the Special Marriage Act. Age of consent is raised to 12. Child Marriage Restraint Act is passed. Women had a little, you know, right to property. Though, you know, the British had come to India as traders in 1608, but soon, you know, from traders, they emerged into rulers, and they started colonizing India. What they did was, you know, they started following the policy of divide and rule, so that, you know, based on religious lines, all the, you know, we were the ones who were producing raw materials, sending it to the mother country, from where, you know, they would make it into ready-made goods, and we had to buy them at an expensive cost. So, you know, slowly our economy became very poor. We kind of, you know, we didn't have the Industrial Revolution as it occurred in Europe. And the period in Bengal from 1943 to 44, you know, it was known as the largest famine, which had more than, you know, it claimed more than 4 million lives. But definitely, you know, though they had their own reasons for introducing postal services, railways, English languages, but it did benefit because it brought in some kind of, you know, there is something in economics which you call trickle down effect. They may not have meant it, you know, the railways were to carry the goods of the colonial masters, but we did get some benefit out of this. But now in response, you know, when the Britishers started criticizing us, there was a massive social reform movement which took place. And there was, you know, because many of the Indians were now becoming educated, they were Western, educated in Western ideas, thoughts and philosophy. And they looked at our own country and they wanted to bring about a change. But democracy was also becoming very powerful. Today, when we look at India, you know, we are deeply rooted in religion. Hinduism is one of the oldest religion of the world. And as a people, we are not ashamed of our religion. I'll share with you a very interesting experience I had. You know, when I was in China a few years back, I just asked a student, I said, what religion do you follow? And, you know, I was in for a surprise because he turned around and he says, ma'am, my religion is science. I said, oh God, what is this? Then I just asked, out of curiosity, asked another student, and I found such strange answers. You know, some said, my religion is machine. Some said, my religion is science. Some said, my religion is rationality. You know, they are so ashamed of their religion for whatever political reasons. In India, we are not ashamed of our religion. We take it, it is one of our strengths. And we, today, a very young, we think it's very cool that you can go around with an Om shirt, you can have Rudraj, even in your mobiles, you can have some religious tune. And we are really not ashamed of it, On Dashera day, I would go to my office and all my computers will have a lot of tikas and all, because everybody would be worshipping them. We have the best technologists, people who work in IT, and yet we can pray our computers on Dashera. So, we are very comfortable with these kinds of development. Today, we have a huge diaspora in US, UK, Canada, Africa, Australia. And if you look at the development on Hinduism, it's not a linear process, from founder to an organized system. Rather, it has become like, it's come out as a distinct, mosaic of distinct cult, deities, ideas. There has been a lot of adjusting, juxtaposition. Some have distanced themselves. Today also we continue to worship stones, trees. We have not given up those forms today. And we cannot really view Hinduism as a monolith tradition. There are so many gods and goddesses that are worshipped. Some are very distant from their Vedic forms. We also had movements like the Bhakti movement, the Sufi movement, which came up from the lower classes, which were questioning them. They tried to bring about a parity in society. They wanted to give rights to the oppressed people. Even in the Sufis, you had, though they were ascetics, they spoke of renunciation and self-denial. But there is an attempt to trying to bring people closer to society. If we look at our art and, there is a close connection between religion and art. The Greeks were known to have excelled in the portrayal of physical charm and the human body. Today also, if you look at a Greek sculpture, and they have excelled in portraying the human body. The Egyptians have their grandeur in their pyramids, the very scale of that size. The Chinese are known for their beauty in their landscape. And as Indians, I think the beauty of our art is we have transmitted our spiritual content into art. If you look at it in terms of art and architecture, it's when I go back into the 5,000 years, we find that, there has been so much of a continuity in our art and architecture. It is the images from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, which have developed into frescoes, miniature paintings. Look at our Ajanta caves and the drawings, the paintings which is depicted in those. Look at some of our sculptures. Look at the Yaksha, the Darganj Yakshini, who's supposed to be the most beautiful sculpture, the Shalbanjika Yaksha in Khajuraho. Look at the sculptures, portrayed on the wall in Khajuraho. Look at Mahisasur Mardini. They all represent a tradition of art which is very much influenced by religion. And we had constant flow of people, streaming from different countries between Central Asia, especially when you come to the medieval period. So you had Indian, medical ideas, herbs, methods of treatment that were transmitted to Baghdad and different parts of the caliphate. In fact, Manka, who had cured Caliph Harun al-Rashid, he was appointed as the Bureau of translating a number of Sanskrit work on medicine into Arabic. Many works of Charka and Sushruta were also translated. In the ancient period, you had these huge, frescoes which were painted on the walls of temples, on the, ceilings of the temple. But by the time you come to the medieval period, you no longer have those frescoes, but you have miniature paintings which come up. The miniature painting is something which is in small size. It could be on vellum, fine skin, copper, ivory, or manuscript. A major theme which we come across is of royalty, because obviously, it is the royalty which is encouraging them to make. We have a number of paintings of Queen Khanzada Humayun, who, in order to perpetuate the memory of her husband, Hussein Nizam Shah had them painted. So you can see these miniature paintings. It is almost like though these are done by Muslims, but the artists are Hindus. Look at the women, the dress they are wearing, the saris they are wearing. It is very typical of a Vijayanagar sculpture. You also have a number of Ragmala paintings where they converted these ragas, gave them human forms. Look at these, in a prince sitting, the Hindola Rag, the Pamshika Rag, and the Ragini paintings which you have of these women who are going around. You also have a number of paintings of the yoginis. The yoginis are ascetics. They have beautiful features, matted hair, and they wear their hairstyle in a particular way. You have these, a yogini is going and paying homage to an ascetic. This is again a yogini from Bijapur. Many historians say that these were royal women from the palace, who were constrained because of the parda, and they would roam out and be independent outside. Then you have another yogini, she's carrying a trishul in her hand and a morchal, and that shows some connection with Shaivism. Again, when the Europeans came, they became so influenced by the, look at the castle in the background. It's very European in size. And, the flowers, now it's no longer Indian. It shows like the Chinese vase because the artist adapted to these paintings. Again, you have a lot of courtesans who are depicted. You have the king in the company of women. Then you have others, from Golconda, another courtesan who is shown. Look at the robes, the dresses. Then you have a lot of themes of common women where a royal woman is getting dressed up, and you have these women. What is very interesting is they adapted European themes. See, the artists were Indians, but they adapted European themes. You can see Mother Mary and the Jesus Christ. They are dressed in Muslim clothes, and then you have, look at Mother Mary holding Christ. And again, if you look at it in terms of culture, the Ramayana continues to have a lot of impact. It is something which is composed, it's dated more than 1st millennium BC. And we continue to adapt these stories. In 16th century, Tulsidas again wrote Ramcharitmanas in Awadhi. And it is, you also have a lot of, Sanskrit version, which is attributed to sage Narada, called the Mula Ramayana. If you look at the Ramayana, there is the cave painting in Ajanta. It is from 8th century. And you have a depiction of Ramayana. And this is a Baluchari sari. You'll be interested to know that most of the craftsmen who make these saris, they have a lot of depiction of the Ramayana motifs in this. These are all Muslim craftsmen. It is today, in Bengal, Bangladesh, all these regions you have. So right from, the cave relief work in 16th, 8th century to today's Baluchari sari, you can see a continuity of the Ramayana tradition. The Ram Leela, which is being performed, everywhere you have, especially more in the north than in the south, you have different kinds of Ram Leelas which are performed. The UNESCO has labeled it as an intangible culture in 2008. It has got that status. In Varanasi, you have a Ramayana which is more than 477 years old. It continues to be performed for 5 years in the last day of February. Again, you have in Varanasi, the Ramayana, which is performed in October and November. And you have all these actors who dress up like Ram, Sita. You have children, they take out jhankies, peasants. And then, you also have the Ramnagar Ram Leela, which is again 235 years old. And, you have all these actors who dress up like Ram and Sita. You continue to have the Ayodhya Ram Leela, which is again a very old Ram Leela. And, they perform, it's a very high standard, complemented by Kathak dance. There are eye-catching decors which are done. There is also the Kumaon Ram Leela, which is, they wear much more simpler clothes, but it continues to be performed. There is another Ram Leela in Garhwal, which is called the Garhwal Ram Leela. What is interesting is now you have all women Ram Leela. It doesn't happen at the same time when the other Ram Leela is happening, but you have women who are dressing up like male characters in this. Now, what is very important is that it is not just that they are staging an Hindu epic, but it is a story of our culture, because it becomes a social platform which invites lakhs of people. You know, it cuts across all kind of political, class, religious, and economic barriers. Most of the dresses for these are stitched by the Muslim craftsmen. You have a lot of Muslim artisans who are involved. In fact, there are Ram Leelas where so many Muslims play these different kinds of roles. They know the Ram Leela by heart. When you look at it, the division is more in the political mind. It is the politicians for whatever their gains that they create these differences. But in reality, there is a lot of, commonality, people living together. It is a whole story of, victory of good over evil, and it provides a kind of brotherhood and common bonding. If we look at our music, whether you look at the different kinds of instruments that we are there, right from Vedic age, there is a continuity. The Samveda talks about 3 kinds of notes. Rig Veda mentions instruments like Veena, Vansi, Damaru. And there is a kind of, even in the Buddhist period, you have the Jati music which came. Even Kalidas in his Abhigyan Shakuntalam shows how, poetry is blended with classic music. We have 2 kinds of music in India, the Carnatic music and the Hindustani music, and they all originate from religion. And there is, the Hindustani music is known for its moral construction of the song, the Nad, the Samvad, Swara. And then, you have the Thaat, which is very important. Tals become very important. The Ragas are rendered in different way. In the Carnatic music, it is the intensity of sound which is controlled by style. You have, it is much more free and typical style of raga. They recite the alap and tanam. There is a lot of, purity of the swar. And there is, we have reference to music even in the Sangam literature. So you can very well imagine the continuity. They talk about the Carnatic music. It continued to play a very significant role right from the Sangam age to today. Even after the Bhakti movement, especially during this time, post 10th century, in many of the temples, there were a lot of hymn singing. They adapted a number of these songs. You had both, Carnatic music and Hindustani, which became important. If you go to the Vijayanagar period, you still have these halls, where you can listen to the different kinds of swar. Tanjore became very famous. If we look at our festivals today, most of our festivals, whether, they are known by different names, but they all celebrate the same kind of, whether you call Pongal in Assam, Dinokali in Odisha, or different names, but they are all harvest festival. Right from Punjab to Kerala, we are celebrating the harvest festival, giving it different names. Look at all our, the map of India. We may call it Magh Bihu, we may call it Makar Sankranti, Kicheri, or we can call it Pongal, and yet it is the celebration of the harvest festival. It is one festival with different names. Look at our classical dance, Bharatnatyam and Kathak. Whether there is a kind of unity which you have. Bharatnatyam emerges, it's more worship of Shiva. Kathak is more influenced by the medieval period, where they borrow a lot from Hindustani classical music. Look at Kathakali and Kuchipudi from Kerala or Kuchipudi from Andhra. This is also a continuation which you have from the earlier period. Look at, our Odissi and Satariya from Assam. Here also you can see a lot of continuity, Mohini Attam, and, even right from Manipur to Kerala, there is a unity. These were our classical dances. Look at our folk dances, by whatever name you call it, every region has its own different kind of dances, whether it is in Gujarat, in Assam, Kashmir, Goa, and there is a lot of, celebration which is common throughout the country, known by different names. Look at our food. There is again a lot of unity which we have in our food. There may be a difference because South India, you use most of, it is more rice based. North India may be very, wheat based. And yet the use of spices, the way we use a lot of vegetables, there has been so much of influence in our food. It is very interesting. I read a very interesting study about Madras. When Kellogg's came into India, it announced, it said, we are going to see that within 3 months, the Indian breakfast table is going to change. Everybody is going to eat Kellogg's. But they were in for a shock because our food took 5,000 years to develop. It is not that easy to change it in 3 months' time. As youngsters, all of you are students. I'm sure all of you love your pizzas, your burgers and all, but you can't have it every day. There is a big joke in Telangana saying even after you have a pizza, you must come back home and have your daddo janam, your curd rice, and only then you feel satisfied. So, you may eat your pizza, you may eat your burger, but it is only once in a while for a celebration, for a party or something. But our regular food is something which we have in our homes every day. Look at the food map of India, whether it is vegetarian or non-vegetarian food. We have documents from 11th, 12th century where King is talking about how to make these recipes, and we think we are a very vegetarian nation, but a large people eat non-vegetarian food. And every dish that we know in India is a fusion of a long history of invasion and different tradition. The way we have, because we have been eating our food in such a way that Zaika becomes very important, the taste. Our food habits have developed over 4,000 years, starting right from Indus Valley civilization to the Vedic period to the Buddhist and Jains. And it took, a lot of impact of all these culture. The Rig Veda period mentions only barley. And the Yajurveda talks about urad, masoor, matar. And our, pollution, our practices of cooking played a very important part, and they became a very important part of our culture. There was how do we cook? A housewife who's cooking, she should never taste that because it becomes impure. A water should always be sipped from a tumbler. And I mean, it should never be sipped from a tumbler, but it should be poured to the mouth. And we believe that the saliva was polluted. And you never, water which is used for rinsing your mouth, you never swallow it. These are so many aspects which we don't even realize, but they are very important part of our culture. And we find, the very fact of, sprinkling water, you must have seen early. It is because of purification. Our food is basically determined by 3 very important aspects. The Ayurveda, the medical system played a very major role. We have the sattvic food, the rajasic and the tamasic food. Sattvic food are food which are easy to digest. Even today in fast and all, you eat a lot of sattvic food. Sattvic food would be where you use very less oil. It is not fried, it is not preserved. There are very few spices which are there. It could be fresh, juicy fruits, milk products, etc. And only ginger, turmeric, coriander is used. Rajasic food is something which is very supposed to be heavy, and it is difficult to digest. It is suited for people who do a lot of physical work. It uses a lot of butter. There are strong flavors. There is a lot of salt and sugar. But the worst food, according to our tradition, is the tamasic food. This is something which is unnatural, overcooked. In fact, all your pizzas, your pastas and all would come under the tamasic food. All your burgers would come into this. This is something which is canned, frozen food, pre-cooked, pre-warmed food. And, we would include all our chocolates, incompatible food, tobacco, alcohol in this. We had, the Mughals contributed kulfi to our food. They were very fond of kulfis, and this is something which came. The faluda was again a contribution of the medieval period. Jahangir was very fond of it. When the Portuguese came, they brought in potato, tomato, topaica, groundnut, corn, papayas, guava, avocado, rajmas. These were their contribution. When we look at others, when we look at it in terms of Middle Asia, Arabia, Portuguese, they all contributed a lot. The Britishers, unfortunately, did not contribute much to our food. One, they were here as rulers. They looked upon us as barbarians. So they never liked Indian food. But when the Britishers left, the Mem Sahibs carried the Indian Khanshamas with them. Unfortunately, I don't have so much time, so I can't go into detail. But when these Shikar festivals were held, we have a lot of accounts of that period when, initially they would have two tables, one for the British where they would have their chocolate, puddings and other things, their pastries, etc. And you had all the Indian food from the palaces where so much, the fragrance would be very different. Initially, they looked down upon the food, but slowly they started moving towards the Indian tables. And once they got used to the Indian food, it was very difficult to bring them back to their, Yorkshire pudding or fish and chips, etc. So you have all these, where they carried, curry becomes very important. After independence, when we became, the Britishers had left, our divide and rule period was over. French had vacated Pondicherry, Mahe and Karaikal. Portuguese were forced out of Goa, Daman and Diu. And we developed our own kind of cuisine. Today also, the Japanese take a lot of pride in their sushi, which is the freshness. The Chinese food relies a lot on its flavor, taste, its sauces. But Indian food is something which relies a lot on its spices. We are very fond of it. Today also, when you look at it in our day-to-day life, when there is a celebration and all, food becomes very important, and it is, an amalgamation of these. And therefore, I know I couldn't do justice because I was trying to sum up a culture of 5,000 years, and I think he gave me half an hour. I hope I stuck to my time. But definitely, I would like to conclude by saying that our culture has been molded for thousands of years. It is not a monolith culture. It is a very liberal culture. It has a lot of space. And from time to time, whenever people felt stifled, restricted, they wanted to question hierarchies, we had a lot of these movements which questioned these, if you look at it, the Bhakti movement. And there are two very basic principles of our culture. One is Vasudev Kutumbakam. It's a Sanskrit phrase found in the Maha Upanishad. And it says the world is one family. We treat the whole world as one family. And another is, based on a bhajan of Narsingh Mehta, a 15th century poet from Gujarat, which says that, this was one of the favorite bhajan of Gandhiji, Vaishnav Janto Tene Kaiye, Peer Parai Jane Re. That, a real Vaishnav or a real human being is one who understands the pain of other. We should try to help each other come, in their misery. And therefore, I would really like to sum up saying that our culture is something which has taken shape for the last of these 5,000 years. It is a composite culture. It has been very much influenced by Hinduism, no doubt, but Islam has also influenced us. Other cultures have also influenced it. In the past, we have accepted so many of these different kinds of influences that came with different, civilizations, and we adapted many of these practices and we made them very much our own. Today, we are a secular country with different kinds of religion, faith, ideas, and belief system. This is our strength, and we really need to protect this in the interest and vibrancy of our culture. The underlying principle of our culture is this vibrancy, and we need to really protect it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for presenting us with so much valuable information. This will surely make a difference. We are very humbled by your presence. Thank you once again. I now welcome Dr. S.J. Michael, Head of Department of Political Science, Coordinator for the Department of Social Science and Languages, to give his valuable remarks.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, one and all. Respected chief guest of the day, Professor Rekha Pandey, Madam. Professor Ramya B. Ma'am, Head of the Department, History Department. Distinguished faculty members of the Department of Social Sciences and Languages, and dear students. At the outset, let me thank Professor Rekha Ma'am for providing an enlightening and an amazing information about Indian culture relating to the mind, the social order, the political order, the religious element, the art, architecture, festivals, dances, food habits, and its legacy. Thank you very much, ma'am. I applaud the publication of Department magazine, the Scrolls of History Department, the de facto by the Department of Political Science, and the Unlocking Minds of the Department of Sociology for providing an excellent opportunity for enhancing the overall development of the students and to bring their best talents hidden in them. If you look into the scrolls, it reminds me that it is nothing but the encyclopedia of informations, and de facto is a clear indication of the facts which happens in the institution through the Department of Political Science, and the Unlocking Minds has given a wide, diverse expression of the social culture shown in a right path to the students. These magazines have encouraged students to express their talents. Right from first cover page till the last page, the magazine is full of interesting facts with attractive photos, valuable classroom practices, and the external experiential learning, which has become a part and parcel for the students. Apart from this, one could find the articles of students rich with information too. I wholeheartedly congratulate Professor Ramya ma'am and her team, Dr. Kaveri madam and her team, and Dr. Shikha Das and her team for the effort taken for the release of the great treasure in their respective domain. Best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You have always been an excellent in managing and directing students to get better at whatever they do. Thank you once again. I know for a fact that Department of Social Sciences and Languages has never allowed the fear of failure to triumph over the joy of participation in any of its students. We have routinely come up with a competition that would actually involve students in an intellectual level as well as fun initiatives. It's now time to see, well, how all this have paid off. We are heading to the announcement of all the prize winners and remark for various programs conducted by the Department of Social Sciences and Languages 2021-2022. With great delight, I welcome the student coordinators, Bryden and Dorcas, to announce the winners for the various competitions. Over to you, Bryden and Dorcas.
Good evening to one and all present here. In the month of August, the Department of History had commemorated and paid homage to the freedom fighters who have seriously fought until their last breath to gain us freedom. This was during the 75th year of independence, or Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And the Department of History held a declamation competition where the students from both second and third years respectively enacted a freedom fighter of their choice. The winners of the declamation competition is as follows. In first place, we have Shauna John, 3rd Sem HEP. And in second place, Aishani Yadav, 3rd Sem HEP. In the month of October, from the 2nd to the 14th, the Department of History, in commemoration of Gandhi Jayanti, had organized an online competition entitled Do It Your Way, open to all the students of the BA course. The theme of the event was Gandhi and Sustainable Development Goals, and the competitions included elocution, digital art, essay writing, pencil sketching, and digital poster making. For the students to participate in and showcase their talent and commemorate this great event. The winners for the competition is as follows. In essay writing, we have first place Hannah Biju, second place Anna Alina, and in third place we have Anit Biju. For pencil sketching, we have first place Akifa Hilmi S, and for digital poster design, we have Nisi Anna Biju. And in the month of January 2022, on the 26th, in commemoration of the 73rd Republic Day, the Department of History had organized an essay writing competition to commemorate the 73rd Republic Day of our country. Students were allowed to showcase their talent and enthusiasm through their writing skills, expressing their thoughts and opinions in respect to this great and auspicious occasion. The winners for the essay writing competition is as follows. In first place, we have Grace Mariam Johnson, and in second place, we have Susan Jonathan, and in third place, we have Sarika Bharati. Thank you.
Now we have Dorcas.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I will be presenting the list of competitions and prize winners in the year 2021 to 2022 held by the Department of Political Science. The Department of Political Science organized a quiz competition.
Can you be a little more audible?
Yeah. Okay. Is it better?
Yeah, it's much better.
Okay. Can you move on to the first slide? Yeah. The Department of Political Science organized a quiz competition, Quizarts 2K21, on 25th October 2021 on account of United Nations Day, and 5 teams were selected for the final. Team number 5, consisting of Alan Joseph Benny and Ayishani Yadav, won with the highest points. The second place was bagged by Alice D. Malakar and Chainika Sarma, and the third place by Shalini K. and Chanchal N. Bhagat. Next slide, please. As one of the events on the occasion of Humantra 2021, Ardor Heritage and Culture on 24th November 2021, the department organized Boeing 737 Who Survives an Air Crash event. There were 8 amazing and enthusiastic participants, and Bia Biju won the first prize, followed by A. Priya Darshini and Navana S. Next slide, please. In commemoration of National Voters' Day on 25th January 2022, the department organized a poster-making competition named Ballot. Next slide, please. The first place goes to Ritika Karmakar, and the second place goes to Pravina, and the third place goes to Bia Biju. Next slide. Lastly, the Department of Political Science organized an online quiz competition, Patriot, in commemoration of the 73rd Republic Day on 26 January 2022. 19 students participated in the event, and the list of winners are as follows. The first place goes to Kumari S, and the second place goes to Bukrambam Karmajit Singh, and we have 2 third place holders, and they are Kirtana Krishnan and Meenakshi. The faculty and student coordinators of Political Science Department thank all of you, Giantians, for your warm cooperation and your active participation throughout the academic year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, coordinators. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest competition is not to utter the words, but to live by them. I welcome Professor Ravi Shankar to render the vote of thanks.
A warm good evening to all. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of Department of Social Sciences and Languages. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Rekha Pandey, who has readily accepted our invitation to be the chief guest of the program. She has given a lot of positive energy to all of us by appreciating the academic services rendered by our college. In fact, it was not simply an appreciation, but it is an experiential assessment by Madam, looking at our contributions. Madam, I also thank you from the bottom of my heart for such an enlightening lecture on cultural continuity. It is really an eye-opening to all of us towards cultural history. Madam, when I was referring about festivals, I still remember during Deepavali, you used to call all your students and you used to provide food cooked by your own hand. It took me back to my college days when I discussed with my friends. Thank you, Madam. I also extend my earnest gratitude to our Dean, Professor Gopakumar, for being and providing continuous support for all the academic activities. I extend my profound appreciation to Professor J. Michael, the coordinator of social sciences and languages, for his relentless efforts to take the department to greater heights. I also extend my earnest gratitude to Professor B. Ramya, the head of the department history, who is ever energetic, supportive, dynamic person. Her services are not limited to the department alone, but to the entire college as well. I also take this opportunity to extend my gratitude to my fellow colleagues, Dr. Kaveri Swami, Shikha Das, and Sirajuddin. I thank from the bottom of my heart the student coordinators, editorial team, tech team, and all student contributors for timely cooperation and coordination in getting the work done in time. I also thank all the students of the Department of Social Sciences and Languages and all other academicians from outside the institution who are present here. I also take this opportunity to thank our alumni who is present here. He was the first student editor of History Department magazine. Finally, but not least, I profusely thanks the management team for their continuous support for all the academic initiatives, as well as I also extend my earnest thanks to the volunteers who have rendered their services for the smooth functioning of the event. Once again, thanking you all. I remain with cheerful greetings to all of you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. You have been a constant support and motivator for all of us. And now I request the college choir to join us for the Jayantian anthem.
Like a golden disc, sun in horizon east, lights up a life divine, fills knowledge in our minds. Laurels and the book make us sublime. With the mighty Lord, we soar high on the bedrock of faith. Integrity of force, human dignity true, excellence we strive. Crystal giant thing, light and prosperity. Crystal giant thing, light and prosperity. Raise of joy and peace, scroll our hearts and minds. On we march our goals as a beacon for the world, with a passion for our growth and a love for humankind, united and strong in excellence on the bedrock of faith. Integrity of force, human dignity true, excellence we strive.
Thank you, choir. Now I would like to thank the honorable members in the meeting. Ms. Rekha Pandey, thank you so much for coming and attending this session. I would like to thank the teachers, student coordinators, alumni present in the meeting, and all the students for joining and making this event a success. Thank you very, very much. The session has come to an end.